The Explorers by C.M. Kornbluth is a collection of 9 short stories uh, written around the 1950s. Kornbluth was, I would say, a tremendous writer who unfortunately passed away early. Didn't have a lot of longer form science fiction that was published, but lots of work with Frederick Pohl, some short stories of his own, and um, he leaves behind, I think, what is unfortunately not as read as much as it should be, but what I think a lot of people can learn from as far as short science fiction done very well without feeling like you need to travel to some unknown universe. A lot of this is set in what was modern day at the time, the 1950s, but it explores a concept or a problem, and it does really well with that as its foundation. It's very grounded. Um, I feel like a lot of it was more literary than science fiction sometimes, which was really neat to read because I wasn't expecting that. This is giving off very, you know, man on the moon type of vibes. And while there were a couple of stories in this collection that had that kind of flair to them, some of them were very simple and had very simple. Um, they had an incredible amount of depth, but they were very simply just like, I don't know, the concept and the characters were very simple, and that way you could explore the short story um, with a lot. It just had a lot of depth. Um, 9 short stories, like I said. Um, the first being one called Gomez, which I've seen in other short story collections. Tremendous story. It's about a young man who writes into, if I remember right, some sort of institute, college, place of learned men at the time, and he's a young, I want to say Hispanic man. I mean Gomez, um, he doesn't speak all that great of English, if I remember right. He's a young man who just is an absolute genius. We have a Goodwill Hunting situation, where he is taken under the wing of the main character and is put through these rigorous days of, um, not tests, but just research and whatnot, trying to solve this problem. And I think what made this story great is at the end, you really do feel a sense of um, finality and comfort, and uh, it wraps up what feels like a much longer story. It's 26 pages, and it's like it just you grow to love the characters in that amount of time. And I think Kornbluth does a tremendous job of making you feel like a story has so much more depth than its length would allow for from a lot of other writers. The Mindworm, I honestly don't really remember this one well. I wrote down interesting, not my favorite. I remember there's some kind of, text was in italics, or it was had a different line break to represent when this mind worm was talking to the main character. I feel like there was some kind of, I don't know, something legit like a mind worm or a mind virus of some kind that was infecting the main character, and it was speaking to him, and him or her. I just don't remember that one very much, but interesting, like I said. Rocket 1955 was the third short story. It is a full page and a half, but I wrote down amazing for its length and very funny. Kornbluth is very humorous in his writing, without really trying to be. At least from what I felt, it was. I had moments where I chuckled, and I was smiling at dialogue, or at just the way he would tee something up. And I remember that being I kind of chuckled at the end. I was like, he did that in a page and a half. Wow. Um, so like I said, depth, but doesn't need like page after page to do it. Um, the fourth short story, called "The Altar at Midnight," was exceptional. Exceptional. It's a story about a an older man who's in a bar. He's he's drinking. He meets this younger man who has scars, and people are asking him about these scars and whatnot. And you come to find out that this young man got these scars from like basically like the equivalent, I would say, of like truck driving, but in space. So hauling around stuff, and he has these scars to remind him of this. And it's he's depressed. He's kind of ruined his life, or so he thinks. Um, and you just I don't want to spoil that one. It's very the older man that is our main character has a connection with this younger man that just really was deeply moving. Uh, I really enjoyed that one, and I got finished with it, and I felt that one pretty deeply. So I would find that one for sure, whether in this collection or another one. 13 o'clock was a 25-page short story that I just said weird, funny, and good. I genuinely do not remember this one. 13 o'clock. Let's see if I can remember what's going on here. I don't remember this one at all. I apologize. I'm just kind of flipping a little bit, seeing if any of it I recall any of it. This was about 6 months ago that I probably read this short story collection, so bear with me. I plan on reading more uh, updated content with a fresher perspective to it, but I'm just going back and I'm covering the 25 books that I read during my 25 book challenge, where I was not allowed to read anything else. That was my kind of goal for myself, was finish this book of 20, this list of 25 before you do anything else. And this was relatively early on, so it's been a while. So again, I apologize. 13 o'clock, weird, funny, good is what I wrote down. Goodly creatures. I do not remember this one either, but I wrote great. Also weird. So a lot of these do have a very quirky, unique vibe to them. But I would not. I don't know. He had his own flavor. I think is a good maybe way to um, describe his kind of writing style. He had his own kind of flavor that I think is reminiscent of other authors of the time, and that would come along later. PKD, you know, some quirks about them that made them unique and stand out. Friend to Man was a very odd story that was very cool. It was, if I remember right, it was like a human being and a weird. I pictured it as a giant grasshopper bug type of creature, who's like feeding and keeping this human being alive and kind of communicating with him. In like a first contact novel where you have like a human being trying to like communicate with an alien creature, a bug creature. They're trying to develop some kind of rapport of how do I communicate with you? How do I talk to you? I just remember that was pretty cool. Um, it was not my favorite of the collection, but I did like it a lot. Um, the last two short stories were tremendous. I can't say enough about the ending of this short story collection being so much stronger than any others that I've read. He really finished it off with a bang. The second to last was called With These Hands. I have heard it covered a couple other places on BookTube. It is a story about a seemingly failing artist, who he tries to give these classes. He still sees the value in handmade art and in handmade the time that it takes to create something that's one of a kind. And it's his reckoning with the world around him, not really agreeing with that sentiment anymore, you know. And I think it's a very timely story where there's a character that essentially just kind of like breaks his art and is like, look, like, no, this is just garbage. What's the difference between this and what's in the trash? And the artist is very deeply hurt because he's angry at a society that doesn't care at all anymore about the the details and the time that it takes to create art and sculptures and things like that. And I just remember as somebody who loves writing, who loves creativity, and who works in a field that um, promotes creativity and unique chances and things like that, human connections through creativity and that sort of thing. Um, it resonated with me deeply, and I think if you read this kind of stuff, it'll probably resonate with you very deeply as well. Um, and so with these hands, I mean, it was a 10 out of 10, one of the best short stories I've ever read. And then finally, we come to That Share of Glory, which is the final short story of the book, the longest short story of the book. And I wrote down that it's the best one of all. So if With These Hands didn't sell you enough on this, I don't know what will. But yeah, the last one, That Share of Glory, is more of a space opera kind of tale, where you got these more swashbuckling, uh, like political action, intrigue kind of elements going on. Where, if I remember right, there's like this group of traders, and they go to this world and they kind of offend the people of this world. They get locked up, and then, or a couple of them get locked up, maybe one of them does. They go to save him, they pull a little fast one, and it's much quicker paced, it's much more quirky and funny and like quippy than the other ones, not in a unoriginal goofy way, more of a, like, it was charming in how fast paced it was after reading so many stories that really took their time. A lot of this collection was a slow burn. I appreciated that because it didn't take long. This short story collection was 150 something pages. It's not like it took me all that long. So when I say slow burn, I really do mean, like, for the length of the short stories, they just took a little bit to get going, and I liked that. But this last one didn't really wait. It didn't take its time, and the whole thing was funny. I remember the ending being hilariously funny, where kind of a wink to the reader at the end. I don't know. I just I recall this with a lot of I recall reading this with a lot of, just, I was smiling a lot through the whole thing because it was both powerful, moving, and charming in a way that not a lot of other writers have moved me and made me feel that way. And so I would recommend this, as well as just anything you can get your hands on that's Kornbluth. I have here, 1 second. I have here a bunch more of his stories. I wanted to show you them, all the other um, things I own by him, so that you could help me pick maybe the next thing that I should read by him, because I wasn't really sure. I have something called Wolfbane he did with Frederick Pohl. I have something standalone from him called The Syndic, which looks very pulpy, or at least the cover does. Another Frederick Pohl collaboration, Critical Mass. This looks like a short story collection. Very cool wraparound cover. I'm fond of that physical book. Hear a lot of talk about space merchants. I'm sure if you watch this and you're familiar with Kornbluth, you'll probably tell me that this is the next thing that I should read. Just based on at least what I've read in comments and whatnot. Here is another Poll collaboration. I would say almost all these are, I guess. Search the Sky, with a great cover. So a lot of these are old Ballantines. I think that's what they are. Yes, Ballantines. The Marching Morons. Not sure exactly what we got here. Science fiction stories. So yeah, more short stories, I believe. Pohl and Kornbluth, Gladiator at Law. A Mile Beyond the Moon. Looks like short stories again. Before the Universe with a cover that I believe was on in maybe A.E. Van Vogt book or something very similar. It's giving me like reminiscent of like Players of Null A or something like that. Tell me down in the comments what I'm thinking of, because this I've seen this cover before and it wasn't on this book. Anyway, and then I have the fantastic cover hardback of the best of C.M. Kornbluth with the very Lovecraftian cover. This one, just while I'm sitting here, probably has some crossover with the the Explorers that I covered in this video. Rocket of 1955, Gomez, The Mindworm, The Altar at Midnight. Oh, you know what I forgot? This has Two Dooms. The last short story in here is it's called Two Dooms. I read that. That was my first introduction to Kornbluth. I can't believe I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the video. I have a giant beat up omnibus of like probably like close to 100 short stories in there that I got for $1 at a Goodwill. And I remember reading up on A Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick way early on when I was just starting to dip my toe into science fiction. And in one of like the videos or something that I was watching, I saw somebody mention that Two Dooms by C.M. Kornbluth was a short story that was very similarly like alternate history exploration. I'm not explaining this well, but it's just all coming back to me. That was the first short story that I read coming back into science fiction. And I was like, oh, I can get down with this. I love this. And so that was kind of my reasoning for like putting Kornbluth on my radar. And then I heard him talked about on Book Pill's channel and a couple other places. And I just feel like that was kind of the inception. I totally forgot about that. So anyway, serendipitous moment. I kind of just had like I forgot about that. Two Dooms is tremendous. Great short story. And if you have any love for Philip K. Dick, especially Man in the High Castle, and you haven't read that, go find it. It's somewhere out there. Great. So anyway, that's been me. That's The Explorers by C.M. Kornbluth. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you go out and find his work. I hope you go out and read more science fiction. This has been a lot of fun, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.